Forget that day. It was April 19th. I woke up and basically I couldn't even get up out the bed. It was truly an encounter with God. I woke up and I couldn't get out the bed, so I was, a little frustrated, kind of wondering what's going on. I panicked and stuff like that and everything. So my mind told me, okay, I can't get out the bed, but I can roll. So I rolled out my bed and fell on the floor. And so when I fell on the floor, basically, like I had a bunch of fluid in my lungs and everything as well too. So, the fluid in my mind was kind of filling up and everything in my mouth, whatever. So, of course, I was panicking, crying, wondering what was going on.
So you couldn't move your legs, your limbs? You couldn't move anything?
No. Only thing I could do was roll. That's what my mind told me to do, was roll off the bed. I don't know why, but it did. So I rolled and I fell on the floor. And so, of course, I was crying, I was upset and everything. And it's like God himself came into the room. And God said, just stop, open up your mouth and just let the fluid out, keep on spitting it out and everything until it came out. And then the words that he brought to me was to say, I shall live and not die. I think this is a little touchy for me because I had a friend that just died in March. So my mind was telling me that you about to go too. But, as I kept saying, I shall live and not die, I shall live and not die, I noticed that my body started calming down. What I would like to say came underneath the subjection to God or whatever. So then I finally got all the fluid out of my mouth and I laid there on the ground and I calmed down. And then I thought to myself, okay, you on the floor, you calm now, but your phone in the bed. And I really didn't have the muscular strength to get my phone. So I just laid there for a moment. And then I unhooked the sheet from the side of the bed. And I just tried to pull as much as I can. I finally got the phone to come down on the floor. And that's when I called Austin and told him, I need you to come over here quick. I can't move.
And this is you home alone by yourself?
Yes.
Going through all of this?
Yes.
And how far do you live, Austin?
It's like 10, 12 minutes away. It was like 5:40 in the morning. I got a phone call.
Wow. Oh, this is like 5 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
Jesus. Okay, so I don't want to. What happened after that? You got Austin on the phone.
He got there. He came there, and I still didn't have. He couldn't get me up off the floor by himself, so he called another one of our friends. He came over there, and they rushed me to the hospital. Once I got there, what I found out, even though I have been doing my own research, and I am part of a support group as well, what I found out was that I was in crisis, something called Myasthenia Gravis.
Okay.
Even though I have been doing my research and everything, I did not know what crisis looked like. I should have known something was different the night before because when I tried to eat, I couldn't chew and I couldn't swallow, but I just let me take my medicine, just go to bed. But little did I know, I was in crisis.
And this all happened in April.
Yes.
And you were diagnosed last year.
No, this year in January.
Oh, you were diagnosed in January, but you
Yes.
started having symptoms last year. And so you're already on medication for this.
Yes.
But you never heard of crisis. In Austin, so what is crisis?
So crisis is where your body just overreacts to having those antibodies, what we call antibodies, that causes this MG to flare, what we call a flare. So it causes extreme muscle weakness.
Even in the throat?
Even in your throat. Well, we have to realize our diaphragm is a muscle. It inhibits us to breathe if it's paralyzed. So you don't get to get good breaths. You have all this stuff building in your lungs and you can't breathe. So it also affects our heart. Our heart is a muscle. So therefore, there are a lot of tests that we have to take and administer to patients to be sure that their heart isn't messed up, be sure that they're still able to breathe well, to function well when they move, when they walk. So that's what happens in crisis. It's kind of similar to when people have sickle cell anemia and they have sickle cell and they're in extreme pain, so they're in sickle cell crisis. So it's one of those type things.
So then was there anything having now, before I go to that, you went to the hospital and you were admitted into the hospital for how many days?
I was in the hospital for 10 days.
And at one point you ended up in ICU.
Well, I was in ICU for the majority of the time I was there. Once I got to the hospital, it had got so bad where I couldn't even hold my head up. I couldn't talk or anything. So when they came and got me from the house, I guess my strength had came back for a moment. You know what I'm saying? Where I was able to actually walk to the car and get in the car. But as I got to the hospital, one thing I noticed, I couldn't lay down because when I tried to lay down, I couldn't breathe. And then as time went on, I guess the muscle just really, really got weak where I couldn't hold my head up. I couldn't talk. I couldn't do anything. So I wound up on a ventilator as well too, because they put me down because they was trying to put, I was assuming it was the feeding tube, right? Trying to put the feeding tube in me, and I couldn't even tell them I couldn't breathe. I was trying to tell them, but I couldn't. And when they put the tube in me and they laid me down, my oxygen level dropped drastically.
Because you was trying to tell them that you couldn't breathe, but you couldn't get it out, and they weren't paying attention to the body language. There's something about the nurses in the hospital, Austin, that just don't pay attention to what the patient is trying to say.
A lot of nurses don't listen. That's why it's very important to have a health advocate always there with you. As being a healthcare provider myself, I try to advocate for my friends, my family. I don't too much like to get involved, but if I have to say, well, hey, we're doing this wrong, because health disparities against Black Americans is real. I know it's a topic that doesn't like to be discussed, but it's a real topic that has to be addressed. So it's always best to have a health advocate there with you.
Absolutely, that is so key. I do not like for anybody to go to the emergency room alone or be in the hospital by themselves, especially when you cannot function adequately to tell them what's going on. And Andre, talk about that moment, the fear that you had to have felt where you wasn't able to speak, you couldn't hold your head up.
Well, let me say this though. I did have somebody there with me, but this happened like late at night. So she had went home, that evening or whatever, and thinking that everything was gonna be cool. But I was really nervous when it got to the point where I couldn't hold my head up and when I couldn't talk, because therefore, they're not gonna be able to hear anything I'm saying to them. But I guess what was even more scarier is waking up on a ventilator.